Bringing more now on our top story this lunchtime here on Sky News. The police hunt for the killer of a 14-year-old teenager stabbed to death last night. On the very day that Paul Erhan was killed, new laws were introduced to tackle gangland problems in this country. Ministers claim the act gives police more power to tackle gun and knife-related violence. This is what it says. Adults who use children to hide a gun for them now face up to 10 years in jail. Getting them to hide a knife can mean 4 years in prison. There's also a mandatory minimum 5-year sentence for possessing a gun with intent to injure, cause fear or violence, carrying a gun in a public place and trespassing in a building with one. But can it really help? Well, let's get the views now of Patrick Augustus, who's a writer on families. He's also studied the reasons why some young people turn to violence, and he's the father of a teenage boy who's also been threatened recently with a knife. A very good afternoon to you. What happened to your son?
Well, my son, very often, when he's coming home from school, he goes to a nice school in Croydon, but just taking the bus home is a very intimidating experience, because you find that you've got a lot of children who's out of school, been kicked out of school, and they're just waiting for a lot of these youngers, as they call them, to, rob their mobile phone, stab them, or, take out their frustrations on, if you like, And
are you taking the threats against your son seriously? I mean, do you seriously think something bad could happen to him if he didn't, for example, hand over his mobile phone if asked for it?
Well, I'm quite sure on a couple of occasions he definitely would have got stabbed, just because the people who was looking to stab him were doing their initiation process, if you like, from the gang that they, were sent from, if you like. And for me, Emma, unfortunately, I find that over here, you used to have Charles Dickens used to write about child slavery, child poverty, and kids who never have a stake in society. And a lot of these kids here, they feel as if they have no real stake in society, and they're actually, if you like, they represent us as a whole, because they're actually a product of the society. So if, for example, we tell them don't use guns, don't use knives, you sort your problems out in a peaceful way, they look at leaders of the world, whether it be Bush or Blair or whoever it may be, and think, well, they don't sort their problems out like that. They kick ass. They use bombs and guns. So it's a bit hard to tell them not to use these things when their leaders are doing it as well.
Yeah, let's get your views on the tragedy that's happened in East London last night. One young teenager losing his life, another one critically ill. Is this evidence, do you think, of more gangland culture within our capital?
It's definitely more evidence of that. And also, you got to remember the children's thought processes, because for a lot of them, they just want a good rep, and they feel as if they don't want to be a victim. So they feel it's better they stab someone and get a reputation so that they themselves don't become victims.
And with your experience, I mean, we've said that you write on families and you study the reason why youth sometimes turn to violence. How do we start to tackle this problem?
Well, I think one of the ways in tackling the problem is that the government really needs to support a lot of schemes. There's a lot of schemes I know of whereby children have been turned around because they've got some mentor or some program that's trying to help them change their ways, if you like. I've got a brother who works in one of the most challenging schools in this country, a lot of the teachers at that school turn kids around. But you do need help from parents as well. You need a lot of parenting classes, because a lot of parents don't know how to be parents. You've got a lot of kids who's 14, 15, 16 bringing up children, and they don't know really how to be parents. Some of them haven't had parents themselves. So we need a lot more parenting classes, like I know Bernardo's and the Baby Father Alliance do stuff, and lots of other groups around that the government need to support to make, help turn this thing around.
And how would you get kids who live on those estates to attend those schemes? Because they sound like a good idea to adults, don't they? But they might not be the coolest of things to go to.
Well, you find that what the children's interest, some kids are brilliant at sports, some are good at music, some are good academic-wise, and the opportunities, because I've got one child, for example, who said to me he'd love to be an actor, but when he looks around, he doesn't see much actors from this country that's made real, particularly black actors as well, that's made a real big impact. So, and that's in acting, but in a lot of basically they need lots more opportunities, and seeing, some opportunities where people can think it's achievable to get whatever they're going for.
And just finally, in terms of the political parties, the government, of course, the Tory party, talking about trying to tackle gangland culture. We had some tough new policing laws from John Reid, the Home Secretary, yesterday. Who inspires your confidence in Westminster at the moment?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's, for most of them, it's lip service. I don't think really anything really would be done. While you keep it in the media at the moment, then they'll talk about it. But as soon as you've taken it out of the media, it's nice that you've actually focused on these killings, because a lot of times it goes unreported. And I think a lot of them will just jump on the bandwagon while you're reporting about it. But I think if you stop reporting about it, it won't be there. So to answer your question, I don't really have much faith in any of them at the moment. I really have more faith in the community groups who's going out there and actually doing something. And they really do need some support.
OK, we appreciate your views. Thanks for joining us this lunchtime. Patrick Augustus there.
Thanks.
Bit of breaking news.